Good morning, members of the jury. My name is Mansi Goyal, and I will be representing the prosecution today in the case of Catherine Wang. Today is a case of Codeco and looking in depth whether they are responsible or not for all the devastating chaos going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo. You will hear from Yeram Hahn, a former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, who will provide expert testimony on the subject of what the conflict in the DRC has been revolving around, specifically in regards to Hema and Lendu people. You will also hear from Anshu Pendoti, a victim of the crimes of Catherine Wang and the associated terror group Codeco. It is imperative that this case is based on evidence. We will use the evidence that more than 1,300 civilians were killed over the course of 8 months, nearly 30,000 underage soldiers and fighters were enlisted in 2003, and that from 2017 to 2019, at least 142 women have been subjected to acts of sexual violence. All of these acts were done by the group known as Codeco. At the end of the day, my goal is to see that proper justice is served to my client, Anshu Pendoti, and therefore I request the jury finds the defendant guilty. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the jury. My name is Lydia Owens, and I will be representing the defense today in the case of the defendant, Catherine Wang. Today is a tragic case of loss and grief that has caused a politically unstable and violence-fraught environment. However, today was not caused by my client or my client's actions alone. It is my hope that the jury stays focused on the direct perpetrators of harm within the Ituri community, not labels or associations. You will hear from Gorja Yadav, a government official that can attest to my client's actions being a necessary part of the Ituri community's protections when governmental power is not enough. You will also hear from the defendant themselves, as Catherine Wang is a humble member of the Lendu community working to obtain justice and agricultural property rights while protecting their people, not the terrorists the prosecution labels them as. Evidence will be heavily utilized within this case, with court documents from the International Criminal Court and reports of UN misconduct being shown to prove the point of shared responsibility contributing to the current dire situation in the Congo. Therefore, I sincerely hope the jury finds my client not guilty. Thank you.
Witness 1, will you please state your name and occupation for the court?
I'm Yeram Hahn, and as a former United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, I'll be a spokesperson for the UN.
Why have you decided to testify for the prosecution in this case?
As I have knowledge about the numerous grave human rights violations in the DRC over several decades, I believe that I must actively pursue justice for the victims and citizens.
In your professional opinion, how have people been directly affected by the conflict?
The conflict has led to many deaths of civilians. Women and children especially have been targeted, as they are particularly fragile within the society. Sexual violence has been used as a weapon, and displaced children have been vulnerable to diseases and rape.
As a UN expert stationed in the DRC for an extended period of time, in your experience, how would you describe Codeco?
Codeco is a Lendu-run militia group that could be seen as a terrorist organization. In my research, Lendu militias have been oppressing and attacking Hema people for a long time. They have carried out forceful exploitations of natural resources, ruthless murders, and tragic sexual crimes.
According to many witness testimonies, the Lendu militia that is part of the group Codeco has been enlisting underage children to fight in their battles. In your experience, have you ever seen anything like this?
From my research, a significant number of children have been part of rebel groups in the DRC. There are various reasons for armed groups to recruit children. Rebel groups often need a large fighting force, so they take advantage of children's availability, obedience, and malleability.
No further questions.
I'm a cross attorney, and I'll be introducing exhibit number 1. There is evidence to suggest that the UN did not respond to attack in the South Kivu region of the Congo due to a lack of urgency and bureaucratic communication. Do you feel as if the UN has trouble understanding the Ituri community's struggle?
The UN incorporates a variety of branches to effectively approach different aspects of conflicts. The OHCHR under the UN focuses on human rights protection, asserting voices against worldwide human rights violations and developing responses to those violations. In specific regards to the DRC, the UN has sent a peacekeeping organization, MONUSCO, to actively protect the civilians and support peace consolidation.
In your expert opinion, would you admit to having victim testimonies that cite other factors than Lendu militias as sources of stress or conflict?
From my experience, the Lendu militias have been linked to the sources of conflict, both directly and indirectly. Many victims have been raped and have had family members killed by militia groups. Others have faced separations within their families, such as children being abducted into militia groups.
No further questions.
Witness 2, will you please state your name and relation to the case for the court?
I'm Anshu Pendoti, and I'm an interior resident from the Hema community.
Thank you. Could you please describe your experience with Codeco?
My story took place about 2 months ago in February. I remember as it was yesterday. I had just come home from visiting my cousins, and we heard a lot of screaming outside our house. We were too scared to run away. Within the next few hours, a group of men from Codeco came into our house. They attacked me, my sister-in-law, my mother, and they killed my brother. They destroyed everything. They then took us away, somewhere far away to a place that I couldn't even recognize. We were kept there for 5 days, and then we moved to another place with more women from our community. It took us one by one. First they raped my sister, my mother-in-law, and then me. A few days later, they took us all back to our destroyed homes, and they left us here. At that time, we didn't speak out or do anything because we were horrified, disturbed, and scared.
I'm so sorry this happened to you. Has this happened to other women in your community as well?
Yes, many other women in my community have been sexually assaulted by Codeco.
No further question.
Defendant, can you please state your name and occupation for the court?
My name is Catherine Wang, and I am a spokesperson and executive within the Cooperative for the Development of the Congo, Codeco.
Could you please tell the jury what Codeco is and what its mission is?
Codeco's mission is to protect the agriculturalist ways of the Lendu people and to advocate for them.
Some people have had the misconception that Codeco is a violent organization. Could you please explain your contributions to any civil unrest within the Ituri region?
Any civil unrest we've been a part of has been caused by the Hema people or government officials encroaching on or taking advantage of our communities and agricultural resources. We've only been in conflict for peace and the prosperity of the Lendu people. We recently sat down with the governor of the Ituri region to discuss avenues to creating peace, and our only request is that our members have amnesty and can be integrated into the FARDC or national military so that we can continue to protect the Lendu people legitimately.
As a member of the Lendu community yourself, how has the government or the UN supported you substantially, and do you feel safe in your community?
As a member of the community, we historically have not been treated fairly by the government compared to the Hema people. When the Congo was occupied by the Belgians, Hema people were given land and political appointments while we were largely left out of these opportunities, even as the majority. In addition, concerning the current government, it is irresponsible and inactive concerning the conflict we have in the Ituri region, and the United Nations has already demonized our people in favor of the Hema group, making it hard to feel safe without physical armed protection.
No further questions. Cross-examinations now.
Introducing Exhibit 2. This evidence states that Codeco has committed many horrific acts of sexual assault, murder, property damage, causing refugee crisis, and more. As a spokesperson for Codeco, what do you have to say for this?
I'm so sorry that these acts against humanity have occurred. However, I'm afraid this is nothing more than a coincidence. Just because many people from our organization have committed such heinous crimes, that doesn't mean that everybody else is also guilty.
I also have this evidence from the same exhibit stating that your organization forces children to become part of your militia. What do you have to say about this?
We agree that children should not be dragged into this conflict. Many children join under their own volition, even if their parents do not approve, we do not accept them. Codeco is a loose coalition of Lendu community members that have taken up arms to protect ourselves, and members may vary from region to region.
No further questions.
Defense witness number 2, please state your name and occupation for the court.
My name is Gorja Yadav, and I'm a former DRC government official who specialized in internal relations.
I'm now going to introduce Exhibit 3. Could you attest to the reports?
Yes, that is true. The government has taken no action to protect the civilian population. This might lead to the civilian population gaining possession of weapons to feel protected.
I'm going to now introduce Exhibit number 4 into evidence. Could you explain what this chart is?
This is a chart of all the alliances and counter-alliances between the people and the governments.
Would you agree that the Hema people have strained relations with the majority of organizations within the Congo?
Yes, they don't have a lot of positive relationships within the country. With my experience, the government has strained relationships with the Hema people.
And how do you think a strained relationship with the government would impact the Hema people?
This strained relationship also makes it difficult for the government to make comprehensive decisions with the Hema people, while the open connection with the Lendu people helps the government answer their demands at a quicker rate.
No further questions.
Members of the jury, you have now heard testimony from witnesses of all involved parties that clearly shows that Codeco is the main villain causing all the chaos and unrest in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Shown through Yeram Hahn, the UN representative, Codeco has caused countless murders and has also participated in schemes of child labor. By talking to witness Anshu Pendoti, the sexual assault victim, we can see how Codeco encourages engaging in sexual assault and abusing Hema women. By talking to defendant Wang, we can see how Codeco lied about not forcing children to work for their militia, which means they now have a reputation of lying in court, and we cannot believe any more of their lies. Members of the jury, please help us put a stop to all the murder and acts against humanity by prosecuting Codeco. Thank you.
Members of the jury, you now heard testimony from all witnesses and involved parties that suggests there is more to the Congo conflict than just murders and unrest. My client, as a member of Codeco, is advocating for the development and agricultural independence of the Lendu people, not war or violence, and has even made recent efforts to cooperate with the Congolese government and serve the nation. The organization of Codeco is a humble collection of average Lendu citizens that are protecting themselves from harm from arms from manipulative foreign countries, economic hardships, and lack of leadership from the government. Therefore, I ask that you find my client not guilty. Thank you.